Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sukaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Arigor Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri ki jai. Gangamai ki jai. Jamunamai ki jai. Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Angaranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So now we've been going through the past 2 years, practically day by day, Srila Prabhupada's activities since he's come to America. And because this book was not available at the time, we're very fortunate that Prabhupada had kept this diary in 1966, because this was the initial year when Prabhupada was able to break open all of the blocked channels between India and America and the rest of the world to bring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message to suffering humanity. And now, Prabhupada, we can see day by day how he is struggling to open up this channel. So we are starting today with February 24th. Prabhupada, as usual, is keeping in contact with the Jaladuta Navigation Company to see when the next boat will be leaving, just in case he can't get his passport extended, he can't get his visa extended, if his health fails again. So many ifs. So he was keeping in touch, and the captain wrote to him to let him know when the next boat would be leaving. Prabhupada received a $1 donation that day, and a new man has come named Mr. Robert, who will help Prabhupada in the future. And for the first time, because on a Thursday, Prabhupada didn't have his regular classes. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He continued with that program. Actually, we continued with that program in all of the temples for Bhagavad Gita class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we added the Sunday feast. So Prabhupada, on a Thursday, he had invited the devotees, the aspiring devotees, you can come, but the formal classes on Bhagavad Gita would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And last week we read Prabhupada's first draft of the society that he was contemplating starting in America, called the International Institute for God Consciousness. Because at that time, Srila Prabhupada, he didn't even have a picture of Krishna in his room. He only had the Panchatattva and the jacket of his Srimad Bhagavatams, that showed Radha and Krishna and the Vaikuntha planets. But there was no formal temple, no deities, nothing like that. It was simply Prabhupada, whoever he was meeting from the Ananda ashram, and their friends, bringing their friends. That's who was attending the classes. And Prabhupada had started, he called these Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, that these are preparation for initiation. Initiation into what? Nobody knew. But he said because they were formal classes and he wanted attendance, that whoever was going to attend these classes would be requested to give $1 donation. So on a Thursday, a new man came, Mr. Robert, and there was a $1 donation given. Then here we have Friday 25th. Prabhupada was very active, writing to India, to whatever support he could get there. He was mostly depending on two major godbrothers, which was Tirtha Maharaj, who was in charge of the Chaitanya Mat, and his godbrother Ban Maharaj, who was stationed here in Vrindavan, who opened the Oriental Institute across the street from our temple. Vrindavan, number 3, that was his son. He had 3 sons. Prayagraj, from when Prabhupada was doing his chemical business in Prayagraj. He named his son Prayagraj. Prayagraj was very much connected with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He got a lot of mercy from him as a child. And then there was Mathura Mohan, and there was Vrindavan Chandra. So of the 3 of them, Prayagraj, he did not develop the way Prabhupada had hoped he would. He became quite distant and would wander on the streets without any real direction in life, unfortunately. Mathura Mohan, we don't hear much about him, but it was he who spearheaded the instigation against ISKCON when Prabhupada left the planet, and made the court case against ISKCON that ran on for 17 years, trying to claim that ISKCON was a family business and all of the temples belonged to the family. So, though Prabhupada loved all of his sons, he had set aside pensions for all of his immediate family members, but Mathura Mohan, because he was being pushed on by lawyers, by advocates in Calcutta to do this. So he lost everything. All the money that Prabhupada had given to the family eventually would be lost in advocate and court fees. Now, Vrindavan Chandra, he was devotional, and he wanted to help Prabhupada. Up to the end, it was only he who came to see Srila Prabhupada, and he would write to Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave him West Bengal as his district for distributing books. He opened up a bookshop. So even at this time, and it was Vrindavan who also saw Prabhupada off at the Jaladuta. So Prabhupada kept in regular contact, correspondence with Vrindavan Chandra. One time we were at the Delhi temple, it was 1975, and Prabhupada was visiting. He was just going to get the land at Kurukshetra. So Prabhupada was there, Ambarish was there, Gopal Krishna, many of the leaders had come to go with Prabhupada to Kurukshetra. And they all left together. And when they came back, I brought Prabhupada in his meal. And the first thing he said to me was, "Has any correspondence come?" And I remembered that while Prabhupada was away, a postcard had come that I had tucked away. I didn't think it was, postcards usually aren't very important. So I ran and I got that postcard and gave it to Prabhupada, and it was from his son. So they were always keeping in contact, wherever Prabhupada was. His son and his sister specifically. Then navigation. Now number 2 is interesting because Surya Prakash Joshi had recommended to Prabhupada that you get in contact with the Nepal ambassador, because being a Hindu nation, they would also probably be interested in having a Krishna temple. So Prabhupada was writing to get an appointment with the ambassador, with the envoy in New York, because in New York City all of the consulates were there. The embassies were in Washington, D.C., but the consulates, even now we have the consulates one in New York, one in San Francisco, different places throughout America, so people can get their visas and Indians could be facilitated with their citizenship work. So these letters were received, and Prabhupada would follow up with the Nepal consulate there later in a few days. And then Prabhupada wrote to Sally, wrote to his son, and being a Friday, because Dr. Mishra, actually he was depending on Prabhupada for his kirtans. Although he wouldn't let him speak, he wanted him to do the kirtans because it enlivened the students. So that also. Now, since February 21st, Prabhupada moved into his new room, number 501, on February 10th. And 11 days later, the water blocked up, and the dirty water was spilling all over the room. And till now, 25th, plumber still didn't show up. Prabhupada had to live with this. So he was really having a lot of challenges. How to get settled, how to expand, and the smallest details were very difficult. Just to eat, Prabhupada had to walk 7 blocks to cook, and he also had to cook for Dr. Mishra. He was cooking in Dr. Mishra's home. So, and 1 time a day only he got to cook, and then starvation at night. And now even the sink, the one sink that he had, blocked up with dirty water. So these are real challenges that Prabhupada had. Now, February 26th, Satsvarup Maharaj, Prabhupada had written a few days earlier to his contact in Bombay, who he had left his books with. And he had asked him to start distributing his books all around Bombay and Maharashtra. So the letter came as a reply. Mr. A.P. Darwadkar of Universal Book House replied, I cannot give you very happy news on the progress of the sale of Srimad Bhagavatam because the subject is religious, and only a small section of society may personally be interested in the books. We tried to push them through some booksellers to Nagpur, Ahmedabad, Pune, etc., but regret to inform you that after some time, these booksellers returned the books for want of response. As such, we are not only unenthusiastic to agree to your proposal of taking up sales for all India, but we were just thinking of requesting you to nominate some other people in our place to represent your sale program in Maharashtra. So we had experience preaching in Maharashtra in the very early days, in the early 1970s. First, in Bombay itself, because our temple was under construction, we could hardly even find a Krishna temple in all of Bombay. It was mostly Mumba Devi, Ganeshji. So it's not that Krishna consciousness was that popular in Bombay either. Religion was there, but not necessarily, aside from the Ballabha Sampradaya, such as Sumati Morarji, her family, and the people who she associated with, Krishna was not the #1 deity in Bombay. It was Mumba Devi. So, and then we went to Pune. And Pune, there was not a single devotee in Pune at the time. This is 1974. No one. So we were able to put Prabhupada's books in, of course, Prabhupada had a plan when he brought his foreign devotees here, because seeing foreigners, people are automatically curious, and they want to hear what you're doing, why you're here, everything. So when we brought the books all over to so many colleges in Pune, even then, in the 70s, they all took Prabhupada's books. But here, because it wasn't devotees distributing books, it was just a commercial enterprise, Universal Book House, they couldn't sell they sold 6 sets of books in about 1 year. So, yeah, we used to carry the books on our head in big boxes, and wherever we went, the books were taken, all around Maharashtra and Gujarat. But it takes devotees to distribute books. You can't do it commercially. And Prabhupada didn't have that foundation yet. So he was depending on commercial booksellers who were having no success with. They wanted to return Prabhupada's books. We couldn't get enough books. We were waiting for them all to come from abroad. So far, they had sold only 6 sets of books, for which they were about to transfer rupees 172 to his account. This was hardly encouraging to the author. Again, India was not interested. Even in, quote unquote, the land of religion, religious subjects were only for a small section of society. So the next entry that Satsvarup Maharaj has is March 4th. So we have a good 1 or 2 weeks to catch up on from Prabhupada's personal diary. What Prabhupada says here about Saturday, 26th of February, is the whole day and night remained at Anand Ashram up in upstate New York. Kirtan demonstration was given. Dr. Mishra appreciated it very much. Next morning, Prabhupada was also invited to do the kirtan, because they would go up Friday night, stay Saturday, and then come back Sunday. So Dr. Mishra was encouraging Prabhupada, please help me. No expense, because Prabhupada was the guest of Dr. Mishra there. Then on Sunday, the whole day remained at Anand Ashram, Monroe. Kirtan demonstration in the morning. The recording was taken by Mr. Bill, but it was not successful. You see, electronics were not very advanced in the 60s. We had these big tape recorder machines with big reels, nothing portable. You had to have the machine there, it weighed 5 kilos, So, though Prabhupada had purchased his own, he couldn't take it all the way there. So the attempt was not successful. And these kirtans, when young people came to Prabhupada's room, he would play them. And we had heard last week that Prabhupada was even sending them to the radio stations to play them. Nina Gordon attended. This is a new name. Plumber did not come. One torn suitcase brought by Nina. Clothes put into it. Nice. No income, no expenditure. Monday the 28th, engagement with the first Secretary of Permanent Commission of Nepal State to the United Nations at 2 p.m. So Prabhupada was successful in meeting a representative of Nepal. Saw the first secretary, Mr. Kedar P. Karala, and it is hopeful. He will let me know very soon. So Prabhupada's bus fare, 15 cents there, 15 cents back. Income, $1. One letter received from Ban Maharaj, and one letter from Atma Singh. Atma Singh is a new name, and we'll hear in the coming days why Prabhupada had written to him. Now we've come into the month of March. Things start changing a bit in March. Tuesday, March 1st, saw the India Office for Extension Passport and saw Mr. L.L. Mehrotra. It meant that Prabhupada had to go to the consulate again, and his friend Mr. Mehrotra was there trying to help him for the extension of his passport. Saw also Mr. Bogart. Mr. Bogart was helping him to contact different foundations and charitable trusts, trying to get support within America. Still hopeful. Received letter from Secretary of Indian Prime Minister. Disappointing. I'll show that letter. Received letter from Universal Book. Not encouraging. Again, these are the messages Prabhupada was getting from India, from the Prime Minister down to the booksellers. Not encouraging. Butter and bus fare, etc., expenditure, 50 cents, income, 15 cents. Wednesday, 2nd March. Today in the morning, I went to see Mr. L.L. Malhotra in connection with renewal of passport after June 1966. The application with letter of forwarding submitted. Extension up to 30th June already allowed. It is referred to New Delhi, and by confirmation from there, the passport will be renewed at least for 1 year more. And Prabhupada also had someone working on it in Delhi to help him, Chandrasekhar. Expenditure bus fare, 30 cents. Dr. Mishra gave me a pot for drinking milk. Chandrasekhar sent a letter for seeing the passport office in New Delhi to expedite the reply. Income contribution, this is a Wednesday, so Prabhupada had his Bhagavad Gita classes, $3. Robert brought some whole wheat flour. Cohen brought the Sankirtan picture because Harvey Cohen, who was later to become Haridas Das, he noticed that Prabhupada had this little picture with 5 dancing figures. And introduced himself as an artist, and offered to make a big picture of it. So there were some defects, so taken back for rectification. Cohen brought one cotton jersey for me, thanks. We'll see Prabhupada later in a picture with that cotton jersey. So the few regular students who were coming to see Prabhupada, they were developing a mood of devotion. They were starting to bring Prabhupada gifts, giving him regularly now $1 for their classes. Things were developing very slowly, embryonic in America. Thursday, 3rd March. Today, Ekadasi observed. No letter received. In the evening, only 2 visitors came, because Thursday was not a class day. Just as they liked, they would come and ask Prabhupada questions, hear the kirtan with Prabhupada, but it wasn't a formal class. There were some topics on meditation, yoga, expenditure, boot polish, and lace. So boot polish and lace, it means that Prabhupada finally got some shoes after all the snow and everything else that he had to go through. 46 cents. Income contribution, $1. Dr. Mishra wanted my kirtan in his meetings. I am considering the proposal. The situation is adverse. So because Dr. Mishra, of course, Prabhupada, he was staying previous to February 10th, right in Dr. Mishra's yoga studio in the same building, in that windowless room. So now Dr. Mishra wanted him to regularly take part in those yoga classes as well with kirtan. Let me first of all see how they receive it in the Anand Ashram. Joan presented me a copper cup. Very nice, thanks. Friday, March 4th. So Prabhupada writes about March 4th. We'll see in this year particularly, when we come to the wonderful books written by Prabhupada's disciples, such as Miracle on 2nd Avenue, and Satsvarup Maharaj wrote so many books about this first year. What Prabhupada has to say about the day and what the students have to say have nothing to do with each other because they have different concepts. They're seeing from their point of view, and Prabhupada's seeing in a very matter-of-fact way what he's doing in his progress. In fact, even the first love feast that Prabhupada had, they saw everything one way and Prabhupada saw it completely differently. Today, one letter sent to Boyd Compton of the Rockefeller Foundation asking him exchange cooperation. Meals taken at Dr. Mishra's. Income $9, contribution and books. No expenditure. So March 4th, Satsvarup Maharaj writes, another reverse. On February 8th, Srila Prabhupada had written to India's new Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, requesting her to sanction the release of money from India. A reply dated February 25th, New Delhi, came from the Prime Minister's official secretary, Mr. L.K. Jha. This is that disappointing letter. Dear Swamiji, the Prime Minister has seen your letter of February 8, 1966. She appreciates the spirit which has prompted you to carry the spiritual messages of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam to other countries. Owing to the critical foreign exchange situation which the country is facing, it is greatly regretted that it will not be possible to assist you from here in your plan to set up a Radha Krishna temple. This is coming right from the top. Can't get any higher than the Prime Minister. So this is a refusal. But Prabhupada did not give up. And this was the proof of it just back here. Prabhupada decided to contact the Rockefeller Foundation. Foundation is an American private foundation and philanthropic medical research and arts funding organization based at 5th Avenue. The foundation was created by Standard Oil magnate John D. Rockefeller and his son, their primary business advisor, when his charter was granted by New York. It is the second oldest major philanthropic institution in America after the Carnegie Corporation, which also rejected Prabhupada's request. We heard that 2 weeks ago. And ranks as the 30th largest foundation globally. Public health, health aid, and medical research are the most prominent areas of work of the foundation. So public health, health aid, and medical research did not quite fit into opening a Radha Krishna temple in New York City. But still Prabhupada tried. The foundation established the Population Council to advance family planning, birth control, and population control, and goals of the eugenics movement. Now, back in the 70s, when Prabhupada came back to India, every scooter, every commercial vehicle in Delhi said the same thing, hum do, hamare do, right? Remember that? Not so much now. But in those days, eugenics was the big thing. And this is what the Rockefeller Foundation was working on. They were trying to make a super race of human beings and get rid of the unwanted, the poor people, the classless people, the uncivilized people they considered uncivilized. And so Prabhupada, his request fell on deaf ears, unfortunately. Prabhupada's next attempt. But Prabhupada had other hopes. After writing to the Prime Minister, he had written again to Tirtha Maharaj, asking him to request Dr. Radhakrishnan to persuade the government to sanction the release of funds. He waited for 1 month, no answer. Apparently, his godbrothers felt little obligation toward preaching in America. He had written that he needed encouragement from them to continue in America because it was so expensive. He had explained that he was spending the equivalent of 1,000 rupees a month. As such, I am counting every day to receive your favorable replies. But there was no reply. So, on the 5th of March, Prabhupada now, you see, we have the problem to this day in India. The Christian missionaries come to India to convert people here. And they use two methods, trying to fulfill the material needs, because the people are poor, the people are hungry, the people aren't educated. So they fill up those material needs and at the same time indoctrinate them with Christianity, because the people are grateful for charitable work. So the Salvation Army, it was actually an army of missionaries. They had generals, captains, commanders, officers, soldiers, and they went all over the world doing this proselytizing work for Christianity. Today I've sent one letter to the Secretary, Salvation Army, 14th Street, for exchange. Now, Prabhupada wasn't trying to get them to help him spiritually. All he needed an organization in India that would take the money and give it to him here in America so he could build his temple. That was his one major project. He knew he needed a center in New York City in order to flourish. Kirtan was performed at 2 o'clock, went to Anand Ashram. It was a Saturday. Kirtan was performed in the evening, very much appreciated. Night passed at Anand. Yolande, a student of Dr. Mishra, gave me a calendar. No expenditures. So a little bit about the Salvation Army, because it turned out the Salvation Army, up to now, was the only organization that agreed to help Srila Prabhupada. Although their goals were so different, they appeared to be so different. but on a financial basis, they were willing to help. Salvation Army is a Protestant Christian church and an international charitable organization. It reports a worldwide membership of over 1.7 million, consisting of soldiers, officers, and adherents who are collectively known as Salvationists. Now, in America, the Salvation Army is most prominently known for thrift shops. Anyone who lives in America, they've seen Salvation Army thrift shops. What they do is people will donate old things because it's such a huge consumer economy in America. You don't have anything to do and you have money, so you buy things. And you buy and buy and buy, and then you don't need all the things that you buy. So people in the army in charity, because they don't have any room in their house anymore. Their old clothes, the fashions, all their old, so many machines and furniture. So they just, because they want to buy new things, so they give the old things in charity to the Salvation Army. And the Salvation Army sets up huge, gigantic factory-type shops, and you go in there, and you buy all these old things for very cheap prices, and that's how they make money for their missionary work. You understand? So they don't have to beg from people. People just give their old things, they sell them off, and they have so much money then for doing conversions. So its founders sought to bring salvation. Salvation means mukti, that now we know who Jesus Christ is, and Jesus Christ can take us to God. But they don't know who God is, unfortunately. Its founders sought to bring salvation to the poor, destitute, and hungry by meeting both their physical and spiritual needs. It is present in 133 countries. Maybe, I don't even know, are there 100? How many countries are there in the world? But we have quite a few temples in many countries as well. Not 133 though. Running charity shops, operating shelters for the homeless, and disaster relief and humanitarian aid to developing countries. So they make their money in America and other wealthy countries, and then they send their soldiers, Salvationists, to the poor countries. They direct specifically for the poor and needy people, give them what they need materially, and turn them into Christians. And this is how the whole missionary spirit goes on 133 countries around the world. Salvation Army is a major Christian denomination in India. They especially targeted India. Its work includes work with addicted persons. It has more than 300,000 members, 9 hospitals, and more than 100 schools. Its national secretariat is in Calcutta, West Bengal. The Salvation Army, see, they break it up into different, just like an army, they have different zones. The South Zone, Central Zone, Eastern Zone, Northern Zone, and then Southwestern and Western. So this is Prabhupada's letter that he wrote to the Salvation Army to convince them. Dear Sir, I beg to inform you that I am a Vaishnava sannyasi, and I have come from India, Vrindavan, UP, for establishing a preaching center in America for the first time in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. A small literature in this connection is sent herewith for your kind perusal. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study of the Bhagavad Gita, and both of them are sciences of theism. I am seeking your good cooperation in this attempt for developing higher sense of God consciousness. So Prabhupada was trying to get a common ground with them of theism. His manner of speaking was that just as you are going to India to make Christians, I have come from India to make Vaishnavas. We're both in the same business. I have got money in India, and I wanted to get it from India for starting the above center, but the government in India has no dollar exchange to pay in America, and therefore I have been handicapped in this attempt. My correspondence with the Prime Minister, as well as my devotee, Sri Padampat Singhania, is complete. Completely disappointing. The latest replies and their copies are also sent herewith for your perusal. I know that you have a great number of centers in India for your missionary work, and you spend many thousands of American money in India for your noble activities. If you therefore accept my money in India for spending there, and pay me in dollars here in America for my spending here, it will be a great cooperation. So this was brilliant. No formal money exchange. We'll give you money in India, you give me money in America. How Prabhupada thought of that. I think we should cooperate in every respect in the matter of raising people's sense of God consciousness in these days of forgetfulness. The reporters would ask Prabhupada, why have you come to our country? And he would say, I've come to teach you what you have forgotten, God consciousness. I am in need of $200,000 immediately for starting my center here in New York. If you help me by this amount in exchange of my money in India, it will be considered a grace of the Lord. Thanking you in anticipation for an early reply, yours sincerely in the service of the Lord. This is how we used to, when Prabhupada had a special way of replying his letters whenever anyone would receive a letter from Prabhupada. I am in due receipt of your letter dated such and such, or your letter undated, because we weren't trained properly. And then, yours in service of the Lord, we would always write at the very early days of the movement. Let's see, is there anything? Yeah, so Satsvarup Maharaj does not have an entry until March 18th. And there's a lot going on between March 4th and March 18th. We'll catch up here in Prabhupada's diary. Prabhupada gives because he had a Panjika now, so he was writing daily what the different sunrise, sunset, moonrise, etc. But this was a very special day, March 6th. Full moon, 8:46 p.m. Today, whole day passed at Monroe and Nanda Ashram. In the morning, there was kirtan, and it was very much appreciated. Returned from Monroe at 6 p.m. So, talked with Mr. Majid of Tehran, Iran, interested in spiritual rejuvenation of the world. Took lesson for more than 1.5 hours. Now, Prabhupada visited Tehran, Iran twice. Swami, a very young sannyasi, disciple of Prabhupada. He went there to Iran when there was still the royalty, the king and everybody, before the revolution. And he became the personal yoga teacher of the royal family. And Prabhupada then, he then had a disciple named Atreya Rishi Das, who was also from Iran. So Prabhupada decided to send disciples. It was around 1972 or 73. He sent them to open a temple this is the first temple that Prabhupada started in a Muslim country in Iran. And they were successful. They did translation work. And because the Mohammedan religion is also God-based entirely, they have great faith in Allah, and they worship 5 times a day. They just had to get more information from the Vedas. So the disciples who went there, Dayananda, Nandarani, Navayovana, Manjari, and of course Atreya Rishi and his wife Vaidhi Bhakti, they all went there. They opened up a restaurant, and in that way they were able to hold meetings and give people prasadam. So Prabhupada's meeting his first aspirant from Iran, and he was interested because even Prabhupada appreciated the way that the children, they all went to the madrasas. Just as we send children to the Gurukulas, they send their children to madrasas. So Prabhupada did not reject any form of religiosity so long as it was God-centered. According to Mayapur Panjika, today is Adivas Day of Gaura Purnima. Devotees at Vrindavan and Navadvip are enjoying this celebration. I am here alone. Not really, because he was always with his Guru Maharaj through his instructions, without any devotee companion. But I have come here to serve the Lord and not for personal happiness. I am prepared to live in hell. New York was like hell, even if I am able to serve the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted that his mission should be propagated all over the world, and that is my objective. I do not mind the inconvenience personally felt. So even Prabhupada was all alone on this day of Gaura Purnima. Prabhupada was doing kirtan in a yoga group, and then he came back just in time to celebrate Gaura Purnima that evening, because it was going to be full moon 846. So here Prabhupada is just, of course, Prabhupada didn't know what the future would hold. He didn't know that that he would have millions of books distributed all over the world. Who was Prabhupada writing to? He was writing to Krishna, and we're getting that opportunity to hear Prabhupada's inner thoughts, that he's ready to live in hell just to carry out this mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is his affirmation for his Gaura Purnima, the coming of this new year. 7th March. Pratipad, in the evening, Lord Chaitanya's birthday. Fasting observed till 5:30 p.m., broke fast by eating fruits and milk. 7 ladies and gentlemen attended today's meeting. There was topics on Gita and Kirtan. The collection made out of contribution and books, $28. So Lord Chaitanya really blessed Prabhupada on that day. It was one of his biggest. 7 people and $28. Expenditure $1.15. 8th March. Prabhupada went penniless, 40 rupees, which he couldn't exchange. And by the time Srila Prabhupada left this world, he had 108 temples, 5,000 disciples, crores of rupees. Each temple had at least 5 vehicles. Just seeing the sincerity of Prabhupada's attempt to carry Krishna consciousness around the world, Krishna reciprocates. And we can take that as a lesson in our own lives. If we remain serious to fulfill the orders given by our spiritual master and carry on Krishna consciousness any little way we can. It's not that we're going to go and do what Prabhupada was able to do. But Krishna is watching, and he reciprocates with his devotees. Just as he describes in the 88th chapter of the 10th canto, he says, first, I bless the devotee by taking everything away from him so that he'll have no success in the material world. And then, when he sees the sincerity of the devotee, he gives everything back according to how much the Lord sees that we're able to use in his service. And this will happen in each one of our lives if we remain sincere in carrying out the instructions of our spiritual master, just as Prabhupada is doing here. And no one else encouraged him. His own god brothers didn't even care what he was doing. Tuesday, March 8th. Dvitiya, 480th year of Gaurabda begins today. One letter received from Atma Singh Jersa Singh of Bombay. He is not willing to hand over Seva Puja to Gosai, nor he is willing to build a temple in New York. So apparently, you see the Radha Damodar temple, there were always litigations going on between the different family members of the Gosais, because they had 2 temples, one in Jaipur and the original one here in Seva Kunj. And who was going to do the seva, and which Gosai was actually owned the temples. There were always some type of arguments going on. So apparently Prabhupada had, and this was an ongoing thing because Prabhupada still had his 2 rooms at the Radha Damodar temple. He had prearranged. In those days the rent was 5 rupees a month for the 2 rooms. So every month that was being sent still. So that Prabhupada wanted to keep those 2 rooms because he considered the Radha Damodar temple to be the hub of the spiritual world, because it was at that place where the 6 Goswamis would come and meet and hold their Srimad Bhagavatam classes. And to this day, there's still the Goswamis' library there. Very old books of the Goswamis are there. So Prabhupada, he wanted to, of course, Prabhupada seeing the future, he saw many devotees, many temples. He wanted to bring the devotees back to the Radha Damodar temple and establish there Seva Puja. Either we assist the Goswamis or they allow Prabhupada to arrange for the Seva Puja, because the standard was very, very low. It was very poor in those days. So Prabhupada, when he did finally get facility, disciples, and money, he was offering, we'll take care of all of the Seva Puja. Allow us to make a temple here. I'll bring my disciples. Prabhupada called it the Rupanuga Vidyapit. And this is how he wanted it to be within the Radha Damodar temple. But the Goswamis would not agree on that. One would say yes, the other would say no. So even the 2 rooms that Prabhupada had, the Goswami who lived in the rooms just behind Prabhupada, they would block the veranda sometimes and not let the devotees come into the 2 rooms when Prabhupada wasn't there. So there was always some bickering and things going on. And Prabhupada, he was trying from an outsider's view, because he had no disagreements with anyone, that we will do the Seva Puja, you all agree together, and we'll take over and we'll make the temple very nice and reconstruct everything. Nobody was agreeable. Nor did he want to help in New York. Saving account with First National City Bank opened, deposited $50. Larry Bogart contacted. He said tomorrow at 11 to call. Robert, this is the new boy, brought some fruits and dal for me. We didn't have dal in America in those days. We used to use split yellow peas, right? And we would make something called, they were supposed to be boris, but they were called barats in America because we didn't know how to pronounce them. But we had them, oh, wonderful, every Sunday feast, make these split pea ground up into the boris and soaked in yogurt or sour cream. It was one of the favorite dishes for the Sunday feasts. So somehow or other, Robert was able to find dal for Prabhupada. Wednesday, March 9th. Today I went to see the Nepalese ambassador. He was not present, so I left with his secretary one note. Then I saw Mr. Larry Bogart. He has given back the books for examination of Mr. Laughlin of the New Direction Publishers at 333 6th Avenue. I shall see him tomorrow morning. So, Mr. Bogart, if you remember, it was an unusual relationship. Mr. Bogart, he was interested in disarmament of any type of nuclear energy. He wasn't into a religious movement, a spiritual movement. He was concerned about the environment. But he had a friendship with Prabhupada, and therefore he was sharing with Prabhupada different contacts, either for charitable reasons, or Prabhupada was most interested in getting his books printed in America, because he had only brought 200 sets with him. And he had already sold, we'll see coming up in the next pages, the sets were going out. Then I went to Paragon, which was the bookstore that was holding Prabhupada's books. They have received the 35 sets that Prabhupada wrote to Sally Agarwal, the second shipment. First was 25 sets, now 35 sets. It is accounted that up to date, 2 sets today, I've taken back 15 sets. So out of the 35 sets, these 16 sets may be made up. Thus, 20 sets remain with them. Now, this is some very bad news. Prabhupada had his Swami hat. He lost his hat on the bus. He somehow. Meeting held from 7 to 9:30 p.m. This is a Wednesday. 8 members attended the lecture on Gita and Kirtan. Income by contribution and books, $13. So there was a little bit of stability now coming in Prabhupada's programs. So this is Prabhupada's handwriting in the memorandum of the back of this book. Prabhupada was keeping exact account, the inventory, how much in, how much out, how much with Paragon, how many he took. Everything was there. And here's Prabhupada with that nice jersey that was given to him by one of his students. This goes up to March 9th. The beginning is the day that Prabhupada started this diary, which was the 19th of January. And now we're on March 9th. Friday, 11th of March. Dr. Mishra asked me to take some food when I go to Monroe tomorrow. So Dr. Mishra, because of his, he didn't care, although he was a doctor, a neurosurgeon, and a psychiatrist, he didn't take care of himself physically properly. So he very much appreciated Prabhupada's cooking. He said at one point that Prabhupada brought him back to life, saved his life. So he asked Prabhupada, bring something with you when you come tomorrow. I went to see the Paragon Book Gallery. There was some mistake. Later on, the clerk showed me one set on the lower shelf because they were displaying Prabhupada's books. They were selling books because they were specifically, their Paragon Book Gallery was specifically for Asian studies. So the people who came to that bookshop were interested in Oriental philosophy. This makes the whole thing correct. 9 set up, 1 set down, total 10 sets. Add 35 new sets, total 45 sets. Transfer to old stock, 25 sets. Balance, 20 sets. Taken today, 4 sets. Balance, 16 sets, new stock. Now, these are just numbers, but these books were the greatest treasure that any of us could ever have received. My one and only wedding gift was 1 volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I cherished my whole life. These books were so valuable because Prabhupada only brought 200 sets with him. And when the devotees were able to get these books, it was like, we have some of the original books that were donated, devotees who have passed on. They've given the books, they're in Prabhupada's house. But these books were, it was like Chintamani coming from the spiritual world when you received one of Srila Prabhupada's books. So it might not sound very important, but for the devotees who met Prabhupada in America, became his disciples, these books were the most important things in the whole world, Prabhupada's original Srimad Bhagavatams. Though we didn't have Bhagavatam class in those days. we didn't read the books as a class, we would read them individually. The classes were Bhagavad Gita. And then we would have, as the books were printed, we would have up to 5 classes a day. We would have Bhagavad Gita in the evenings. Throughout the day we would have Ishopanishad, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Nectar Devotion, and Krishna book, and Srimad Bhagavatam as it came out. But the Bhagavatam classes were started in the 70s, actually, to these morning Srimad Bhagavatam classes. And the beginning, when Prabhupada sang for the first time Jai Radha Madhava, he sang that for the first time in Gorakhpur in 1970 when he brought the devotees here. And then it was sent all over the whole world. hold the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Before Bhagavatam class, you sing, and none of us knew the tunes, so we would make up our own tunes until finally the first tape came from Achyutananda Swami and Prabhupada, of course. So we learned what the tunes are, all kinds of fancy tunes. Posted letter to them, all in detail. This 16 sets new, I shall take at a time when I next need them. One letter sent to Tirtha Maharaj in reply to his letter of 22 to one letter sent to Sally Agarwal in reply to her letter. We still haven't caught up. March 18th will be when we won't get there today. March 12th. Shakti. I was to go to Monroe because, remember, Dr. Mishra wanted him to bring some prasadam. But Yolanda didn't go. His drive didn't go, so Prabhupada couldn't go. So I could not go there. Food made for Dr. Mishra was partly distributed to Cohen and Yolanda. 2 paratha left for him. Prabhupada even made paratha for him. Cohen is preparing to go to California. Now, Harvey Cohen had already taken Prabhupada once to the Bowery to show him his place. So now there's a new idea coming from Prabhupada. 1/2 tape record prepared for him. So he wanted to Prabhupada wanted Harvey Cohen to take his kirtans to California and start distributing them there. He bought a pad for selling. That means to keep notations, how many he would be able to sell. He assured the maintenance of rent of my room. So in that, their business plan was that Prabhupada would make the kirtan tape and Harvey would distribute it, and with that money, the distribution, the money acquired from that would pay for the maintenance of Prabhupada's room, $70 a month. Sunday the 13th. The young lady who was to come and see me today did not turn up. In the evening, 2 ladies and Mr. Sussman came. There were some discussions. One of the ladies brought bread for me. No income and no expenditure. 14th March. One letter received from Chandrasekhar, who was assisting Prabhupada to get his passport extension in New Delhi. It will take some time to renew the passport. I have today renewed the visa up to 30th June because his passport had been extended up to 30th June, so they allowed his visa to be extended. Now this is March. Usually they would give 3-month extensions to Prabhupada. Paid doctor $10 as fee. I have lost today the good fountain pen. Now this is very interesting philosophy that Prabhupada is teaching us here. Given to me by Gopal. It is worth $13.50. I am very sorry for this, but I should not lament for this. I should not lament for this because it was given by somebody and it is taken by somebody else. It was in my possession only for a few months. So I have purchased one today of the same make but inferior quality. It is working well. Expenditure, pen, Schaefer pen, $1. Then Prabhupada had to go down to Chambers Street. Chambers Street is way down near where the World Trade Centers used to be, where the business section is. It was probably for his visa that he had to do that. And visa fees, $10. Income contribution, $17. They're doing very well. Monday, one of his class days. All right, so today we're having a meeting after this class, so we're going to stop the class now, and we'll read on about more disappointments. The lady that Prabhupada wanted to edit her Bhagavad Gita has refused now because she figured out that Prabhupada's philosophy did not support monism, and what Prabhupada has to say about that. So something to look forward to next week. Hare Krishna. Jai.